next is we want to figure out our translation. So our translation should be basically how many units are we adding to this thing, and it should be the actual position, and then we need to multiply by the fixed value? Yeah, I guess we need to multiply by the fixed value. So we need a translation fix on our camera. Alright, and do we actually have like our X and Y, F width and radius? We have this X scalar. What is the X constant? 1.2. Oh, Jesus Christ. We've got all these magic numbers in here to like fix things. It's kind of insane when you think about it. But we have basically this X scalar needs to be multiplied by our differential here. We need to do our zoom differential. So it's like if our projection width is 6 and our regular thing there, we need to actually scale these objects. So it's going to be like, as it gets closer, it's going to be the scene units X divided by the projection units X. So we're going to need the scene X scale and the scene Y scale, number of units Y divided by the projection height. So this will be like 1, and if the projection height is larger, then it's going to be a smaller scale, which is correct. And then we need the scene X translation and Y translation. Which is this translation fix. So we could just like knock these guys into here. And do we have a scene translation? No, we don't. So like bar scene translation X equals 0, bar scene translation Y equals 0. And the X and Y, basically, we need to subtract the camera X and Y for this. So translation fix.x and translation fix.y. Because when we move the camera to the right, everything else moves to the left. So it's the negative. So scene translation, X and Y is what we have to add into our object X and Y's down here on our frames. Now, do we subtract this? In which space do we subtract this? It's going to be it's in screen space before we translate it out. So it's going to be this X value here. That's what we're going to do. So this should move our stuff where it should be, and the width is I guess we don't really use all these things, do we? I wonder why this FM width here is with the Z. Maybe we can just take that out. It's width scalar times value. So do we have a width scalar? Where is this computed? Scene res divided by units X. So we need the width scalar and height scalars to also be multiplied by this thing. And that should fix the translation and the scale of the exported objects. So if everything is regular, as it is here, like the projection fix is 0, all this stuff. So let's actually export this and see if it looks correct or not. Actually render it to true. Good job, Harmony. Good job. It's trying to lock some files. It's not able to do it. So we're getting closer to actually having this work. Closer. Closer and closer. It's always closer. Master camera peg is at 0. This is at 12F. Alright. So let's make sure we've got all of our scripts imported properly, and let's export SR1. What is this doing? It's did we do something that like uses a crap load of memory or something for this? Oh yeah, we're at 4096 for our goddamn resolution on this. Wow. Okay. That's fucking massive. No wonder no wonder it's taking a lot longer than I would think. It'd be like, it's insane. Alright, so we've got these sprite sheets, which are like the scene resolution is at 4096, but the output resolution is a lot different. So this object, this texture is 2048 by 2048. So like our scene is just fucking massive. So that we have, you know, these close-ups on this dude, which is not what we need at all. So the question is, if we pop open this, we should get our X's and Y's and all that sort of stuff. So our X and Y width and height here is like 472 and 568 and all that. Welcome back, Karakin. So we should have the same widths and heights on these things. That we do then. So let's we'll be able to compare them real quick. So what we want to do is we want to move this camera peg closer, and we want to move it up. So let's export this guy. So the translation fix is -26, and our projection is 12 by 12. If our translation fix is -26, that's pretty damn far in screen units. Like, that's off the damn screen. So I don't think our translation fix is correct. I mean, what does Adam do to export these things? He must just walk away from his computer if he's going to export everything. So if we go into this guy, our sprite sheets now look like you would expect. He's cut off though. Like, look at that. His nose is cut off. Like, that's totally not what our scene looks like here. Like, oh, he's cut off because the Microsoft Photo Viewer is a pile of shit and is zooming in. Alright, so we have all these things, and let's see, if we look at our frames, the offsets and the width is larger, as you'd expect. Okay, so let's close these frames up. And let's look at our metadata. So let's also close our images up. So the X and Y's are very different. The widths the width is twice as big. When we're zoomed in, alright, so if he's this big on the screen, yeah, that looks like it's correct for our width and height scales. Our Y, on the other hand, looks wrong. I'm going to go ahead and change the scene resolution to something a lot more reasonable, like this, 1024 by 1024. That way I'm not going to shoot myself in the head for exporting. So we're going to get the translation stuff working properly first, and then we'll get the scaling. So this is SR1. Let's go and export you. Like there's absolutely no reason to change the scene width and height to something larger than the texture size that you're outputting. So let's see, for our characters right now we got Fat Sack and his animation for SR1. Like we've got this big cutoff animation. Like he's just looking like that, tumbling through the air. If we look at him in this viewer, this is air rising, is SR1. So this thing over here is what we're looking at. And there's our collision box on it. So if we re-import this dude, this is what his texture looks like. And this is what he looks like. And then his entity. Just doesn't look right at all. Well, that's not even him, is it? Alright, so the translation is totally wrong. Because in Harmony, he's in the center. It looks like our scales have changed too. Something's wrong here. Something's horribly wrong. Like when we changed some of this stuff, it changed like the cosmological constant for how big Fatsack is. So that we might have another larger issue on our hands here. God damn it. Fucking Harmony, like really? It's this sort of crap that like you want to get into games? Well, give us where in the damn screen the sprite is. How about that? How about real numbers instead of fake animation units? I don't even know what you mean, Karakan. Cutting according to collision box does not register in my brain as something that means anything in reality. Alright, so the translation is -26. The translation should definitely not be -26, because that's way too tall. The translation should be like 12. So the camera distance is 12, and the camera position is at -12, -10, 12. Yeah, that was the border of the export window. So the scene window in Harmony was just chopping his legs off. because his legs weren't being rendered because they're outside of the scene window. So, no, outside of the scene doesn't get rendered. So it's not being cut off in Unreal; it's being cut off in Harmony's rendered. So we need this 10 here. The Y fix is the scene units divided by the normal units. So the Y fix is going to be 24 divided by like 8.9. So we're going to take this -10, we're going to and that's how we're getting 26, when in fact we should get -10, and then we should be multiplying by what's the volume of the room? I mean, I'm kind of in a corner. It's kind of like, it's almost a box. It's like 10 by 10 by 10 pretty much for feet. And the translation fix should be because if this is -10, this should go down to like -6. So if it's like divided by 2.6, -3, -4. I mean, it's close. That might be correct. So we can try it out. It's -3 point blah for that. I mean, -3, if this is 12 units here, like, it should be... Is it just 10? Like, is that just the damned translation thing? It might just be. It's just like the translation fix is just camera position. Which is interesting. So the translation fix is just -10. So that's going to take this center, and that is about 10 units, so that could definitely do it. And the camera position.x is 10 south. So we would be expecting to add 10 to the translation. Yeah, which is we're definitely subtracting there. So we can try to export this again and see what we get. So we've got all this stuff here. So let's see. Width and height, and X is at -34, and all this sort of stuff. Well, let's see what we can get. So it does look like he is in the right spot for his pivot. Like, it's not perfect, is it? But it's basically, it looks like it's twice as small. Like, this is all wrong. Like, his pivot should be higher and his box should be bigger. So if we basically took the bottom left hand corner of this box and scaled it up and out, like, it might actually be correct. Like the Y, like we're close to some of it. Now the pivot and the size of the box is wrong. Scene scale values are 1 and 1. Well, that is most definitely not correct. Well, alright, the scale values are 1 and 1, that's true. Alright, well let's just try exporting a normal animation that we would have, and I'm betting something has been screwed here by one of these things that has just toasted our cosmological constant once again, and we're not working off of real math anymore. So like, this is just the regular export with nothing special in it. And it's all wrong. So what the hell happened to this scene? Like, what has Adam done that is different with this? Like, we have not changed the units. Is it that we have a camera at all now? Is there something different there? Is there a scene resolution change that we used to have that did something to this? That changed the scales of everything? Because all of a sudden now, shit is different once again. And our export process doesn't work, and that should not be happening just randomly. It's happening for a reason. I mean, if we just take out the camera pegs entirely, we can't undo redo? Control Shift Z? Who the fuck made Control Shift Z redo? What idiot made that? Like, it's Control Y is redo on every program on the damn planet except for Harmony. Well, let's boot up Bitey and see if Bitey can actually be exported anymore, or if he's consistently fucked up like Fatsack. And he's got a camera node on this one too to fix stuff. Yeah. So they're both probably completely fucked. So let's do like the breathe animation. Hello, Adam. Yeah, right now I'm dealing with. It looks like maybe the total export process has changed again for the characters. So I'm just looking at that real quick. So the breathe is there, and let's go to Bitey's imports. Delete everything except sbreathe. So I think whatever happened, I'm gonna see if it's consistent, but it's like the wrong scale again based off of Harmony being a complete pain in the ass. Well, that's not what you changed. You changed the camera, right? You added the camera node in there and zoomed it in. The scene resolution shouldn't matter for a lot of these things because that's just some basic stuff. It doesn't seem to fix anything if I actually get rid of the camera. Like it's still, there's something else that got screwed up with whatever you did. Changed the export of the entire scene to something else. And what was working no longer works at all. Alright, well, there you go. The pivots are all fucked, so that's why that would work. Or wouldn't work. Well, you also added the camera and zoomed it, right? So you did more than that. And it may be that Harmony, when you created the camera node, changed how it exported to like a different mode and stuff like that. So just because you didn't change anything doesn't mean Harmony didn't behind your back go, oh, okay, well, I'll just change the display settings for this whole file and do that sort of thing. It can definitely do that. This is interesting that now this whole thing is busted for S-Breathe. Like, scene scale values are not a number by not a number. Well, that would do it, wouldn't it? Projection is not a number by not a number. And that's going to be because we're not finding things, right? So this is going to be a different issue. Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel. And the other thing you had is you had Fatsack at 4096 for his scene resolution and 2048 for the export, which I don't think there's any benefit for the scene resolution being bigger than the actual export resolution. I think it'll just take longer to render because it has to render out all these scenes and then fit everything onto these tiny little sprites. Because it'd be like, well, if we can't, if the scene's humongous, I guess, I don't know, maybe there's a reason so you can have all this extra space around the character that you can move around inside of. I guess that makes sense. So I've exported him, so now I should be able to import him back. Let's make sure he actually got some numbers proper. Yeah, it looks like we actually got our pivots and all that. So let's see if Bitey has the same issue that Fatsack does. "121 frames? Is there actually 121 frames in the breathe animation? No. Why are we saying there are? Like, we clearly have an end frame at 64. Alright, well, they don't even seem to be used. So let's just get rid of them. Oh, I see. This frame shortening thing we've got going on here is screwing up the export. That'd do it. Alright. Alright, so let's check our math. We have 121 frames. That is a lot of damn textures for a single character. That is that's probably way too many if we want any sort of performance out of this. One by one scale Bitey. He can be the entire the entire screen. Yeah, I don't have the same ones. Alright, so let's take a look at the collision. And yeah, it looks like it's also screwed up. Whatever got changed got consistently changed to be broken. His pivot looks like where it should be, but his box scale X and Y is wrong. And the offset X and Y is wrong again as well. Well, let's take a look at what those numbers could be. It seems to be consistently wrong, at least in the X and the Y, maybe. Let's see what our pivot position So it looks like our X and Y's are correct, but it's going to be our... Well, no, our X and Y's are not correct. Alright, so the size of this is 61 by 271, and the size it should be should be 124 by 494. So all we have to do is 124 divided by 61 multiplied by 1.41. So we're supposed to be at 2.86 for this export thing. Well, the hell with it. Let's see if it's what we want. Sorry, I'm kind of quiet at the moment. I'm thinking about why things would be changed and stuff like that. And my brain is not coming at any good conclusions. Like 2.86 doesn't make any sense to me in terms of being a magic number. Like what multiplied by what would be 2.86? Like we have a field of view of 41 degrees on our camera, but of course our camera is doing not an orthographic projection. It's doing a perspective projection, but then it's drawing these things orthographically, etc. So nothing's really popping into my head that would turn 20 degrees into 2.86 and 24 by 24. Like our scene settings are 2048 by 2048 and 24 by 24, so we haven't changed our units around to anything insane. Why is it off center?